Before we dive in, if you've ever felt like your voice was stolen, your ideas claimed by someone else, or your worth overshadowed, this story is for you. Subscribe to our channel and join a community that believes every name, every story, and every stitch of your work deserves to be seen and honored. The office was a hushed labyrinth of flickering screens and paper towers that threatened to swallow me whole. It was far past the hour when the bustling noise of the day had faded, leaving only the quiet hum of the air conditioning and the occasional soft shuffle of feet in distant corridors. My desk was an island of light in the dim expanse, the glow of my monitor reflecting off my glasses and the shadows of my fingertips dancing across the keyboard. My breath was slow and measured, each word I typed a small rebellion against the fatigue gathering in my bones. I leaned closer to the screen, squinting at the last sentence. My fingers paused over the keys as I read it again, searching for that elusive rhythm, that perfect final note. The rest of the office seemed to recede, the overhead lights cast long shadows on the walls, and for a moment, it was just me and the blinking cursor. A promise of everything I had to say, everything I had kept hidden. I felt the burn of exhaustion behind my eyes, but I refused to let it sway me. My story pulsed in my veins, each line a beat of my heart. I reached for the small USB drive tucked into the corner of my desk, the metal cool beneath my fingertips. It was a fragile thing, a lifeline in my hand. I slid it into the drawer slowly, my hand lingering on it, as if willing it to stay safe. A faint rustle behind me pulled me from my reverie. I turned, catching a glimpse of Seojin at the doorway. She was framed in the soft light of the hallway, her silhouette sharp against the muted glow. Her smile was small, polite, and her eyes flickered to the drawer where I had hidden my USB. My fingers curled tighter around the edge of the desk. "Still working?" Her voice was a gentle chime, soft as velvet. She stepped forward, her movements as smooth and measured as always. Her fitted blazer hugged her frame, a muted cream that seemed to glow in the dim light. She tilted her head, her eyes bright with a practiced concern. "You're always the last one here, Ha-yoon. You should really take care of yourself." My lips curved in a weary smile, though my chest felt tight. "I'm almost done," I murmured. My voice sounded smaller than I intended, as if I were apologizing for taking up space in her perfect world. Seojin's gaze lingered on my face for a beat too long. "You know," she said, her tone feather-light, "it's not always about working the hardest. Sometimes it's about knowing when to let go." Her eyes drifted back to the drawer, and for a fleeting second, something cold and calculating passed across her expression. Then it was gone, replaced by that sweet, polished smile. She reached out, almost as if to touch my arm, but stopped short. I nodded once, the motion stiff and mechanical. My fingers found the edge of the drawer again, pressing down hard enough to leave small crescents in my skin. "Let go," she had said. The words echoed in the quiet, a soft taunt that tasted of defeat. She turned away then, her heels clicking softly against the polished floor. I watched her go, a silent figure in the glow of the office lights. My breath stilled in my chest as I stared at the empty doorway, the silence settling like a weight over my shoulders. I forced my gaze back to the monitor. The document was saved. My words, my heartbeat, rendered in digital ink. I closed the file with a final click, my hand trembling only slightly. My USB was safe, it had to be. I slipped it deeper into the drawer, then closed it with deliberate care, listening to the soft snick of the latch. My chest rose and fell, each breath a silent prayer. I left the office with the taste of stale coffee clinging to my tongue, the night air cold against my cheeks. The city was a blur of lights and shadows, rain misting the sidewalks and turning the neon signs into liquid rivers of color. I clutched my bag to my chest, my mind still full of the words I had written, the images that had come to life beneath my hands. The next morning dawned bright and harsh, sunlight streaming through the tall windows of the office and pooling across the carpet. My steps were slow as I walked to my desk, the weight of sleepless hours a ghost on my shoulders. My heart quickened when I saw my computer, the screen dark, waiting. I sank into my chair and woke it with a press of the spacebar, the familiar whir of the machine a quiet comfort. My eyes flicked to the folder where my manuscript had lived. Empty. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I clicked through the directories again, my fingers stiff, my breathing tight. Still nothing. It has to be here, I thought, the mantra looping in my mind as I searched every hidden folder, every backup. My pulse pounded in my ears, a dull roar that drowned out the murmur of the office around me. My hand hovered over the mouse, frozen. The document was gone. My words, my soul, wiped clean. A soft laugh drifted from behind me. I turned slowly, my throat tight, my eyes meeting Sojin's. She leaned against my desk, her hair perfect, not a strand out of place. Her eyes sparkled with an amusement she didn't bother to hide. "Oh dear," she said lightly, tilting her head as if she were peering at a curious puzzle. "Did you lose something? You really should be more careful with your drafts, Ha-eun." She paused, the smile on her lips gentle, almost tender. "It's a shame to see so much effort gone." I swallowed hard, the words I wanted to scream clawing at my throat. "You did this." My hands clenched in my lap, nails digging into my palms. I wanted to shout it into the silence, to tear away the careful mask she wore. Yet the office was bright and busy, voices blending into a low murmur that swallowed my own. I forced my lips into a small, tight smile, though my jaw ached with the strain. "I thought I had it backed up," I said softly. My voice sounded foreign to my own ears, like it belonged to someone else entirely. Maybe I was wrong. Seojin's smile widened, her eyes soft with mock sympathy. "Accidents happen. You'll just have to start over, won't you?" She reached out, her fingers brushing lightly against the edge of my monitor. "Don't worry. I'm sure it'll be even better the next time." She walked away then, her stride graceful, her laughter a quiet echo that lingered in the air. I watched her go, my heart a hollow drum in my chest. I turned back to my blank screen, the cursor blinking like a silent accusation. My breath shuddered as I reached out, fingertips brushing against the empty folder where my dreams had once lived. I wanted to scream. I wanted to demand the truth, to force her to admit what she had done. The thought burned in my chest, sharp and aching. Yet the words caught in my throat, trapped by the weight of years spent being silent. Who would believe me anyway? I stared at the empty screen until the edges blurred and my reflection stared back at me, eyes wide, lips pressed into a thin line. The office around me moved in slow motion, voices a distant hum, laughter that cut deeper than any blade. My heart beat once, twice, then fell silent, leaving only the echo of my stolen words in its place. The glow of my monitor still haunted my mind long after I left my desk behind. The memory of the empty folder burned in my chest like a brand, a hollow space where my voice had once lived. I walked to the conference room with leaden steps, the hush of the office wrapping around me like a shroud. The glass walls of the meeting room glimmered with the reflection of morning light, each ripple of movement inside casting elongated shadows that danced across the polished floor. I paused outside the doorway, my breath catching as I caught sight of Jiwon. He stood at the head of the table, a storm of energy barely contained within the crisp lines of his tailored suit. His sleeves were rolled to his elbows, exposing lean arms that flexed with each gesture. His eyes were lit with a sharp hunger, the flicker of a man who thrived on competition, on risk and reward. He paced with the grace of a predator, his polished shoes silent against the floor. His voice was smooth and confident, each word punctuated with the crackle of ambition. "I'm not interested in safe choices," he said, his tone precise and clipped. "I want what sells, what moves people. I want to find the voice that no one sees coming, the one that sets the world on fire." A low murmur of agreement rose from the editors seated around the table, their faces bright with anticipation. Their eyes flickered with excitement and greed, each one calculating the price of Jiwon's favor. I watched from the doorway, my heart caught between the pulse of fear and the slow ache of longing. My fingers brushed the edge of the doorframe, grounding me in the present, even as my thoughts spiraled into the empty space where my draft should have been. Seojin sat near the center of the table, her posture relaxed, her head tilted slightly as she listened. Her lips curved in a faint smile, the light catching on the soft gloss of her lipstick. She wore a pale, lavender blouse that set off the warm glow of her skin, the delicate shimmer of her earrings a quiet contrast to the bold confidence in her eyes. She leaned back in her chair, one leg crossed over the other, the slow, deliberate tap of her heel against the floor a silent rhythm that echoed in the hush of the room. When Ji-won spoke again, his gaze swept the room like a blade. "This is your chance. Show me something that speaks louder than the market trends. Show me something that no one else can write." He paused, his gaze sharp and unflinching. "Bring me something real." My throat tightened around the words that wanted to rise. I have something real. I had it. I still do. The thought pulsed through me, a quiet heartbeat against the roar of my doubt. Seojin's gaze shifted, and for a moment her eyes met mine through the glass. She held the gaze for a breath, her smile deepening into something that tasted of triumph. A slow, deliberate glance that settled heavy on my shoulders, as if she could see every crack in my armor, every tremor in my resolve. Her lips moved with a whisper I could almost hear. "You can't stop me." My fingers curled around the doorframe, the faint tremor in my hands hidden by the pale wood. My pulse was a steady drumbeat in my ears, a rhythm of fear and defiance that tangled together in my chest. Ji-won dismissed the room with a flick of his hand, and the low hum of voices rose as people began to file out. Chairs scraped across the floor, conversations blending into a soft cacophony that filled the room. Sojin rose with unhurried grace, smoothing her skirt with a casual elegance that spoke of long practice. She didn't look at me as she gathered her notes, but the curve of her lips was a blade pressed to my skin. I stepped back from the doorway as she approached, my shoulders brushing against the cold glass of the hallway window. She paused in front of me, her eyes bright and soft as she tilted her head. "Hyun," she said, her voice low and honeyed. "You looked pale in there. Are you feeling all right?" My voice caught in my throat, words tangled and heavy. "I'm fine," I managed. My tone was calm, though inside every word felt like it had to fight its way out of the darkness. She smiled, a delicate curve that never reached her eyes. "Good," she said softly. "This contest, it's an opportunity. I hope you don't let it pass you by." Her hand lifted as if to brush a stray lock of hair from my forehead, but she let it drop at the last second, fingers curling loosely at her side. Her nails were painted a deep red, small half-moons of lacquer that caught the light with every breath. I forced a small smile in return, though it felt like a mask settling over my skin. "I'll keep that in mind," I said quietly. Her gaze lingered a moment longer, the silence between us taut with something unspoken. Then she turned, her stride unhurried as she walked down the hall, each step measured and light. I watched her go, the faint click of her heels a slow drumbeat against the polished floor. When the hallway was empty once more, I pressed my forehead against the cool glass, my breath clouding the reflection of my own eyes. How many drafts had I lost in silence? How many more could I bear to lose? The thought pressed against my ribs like a question I had no answer for, the ache of it settling into the hollow of my chest. My reflection stared back at me, the ghost of who I had been and who I was trying to become. Ji-won's voice still echoed in my mind, that quiet demand for something real, something that couldn't be bought or stolen. My fingers itched for the weight of my words, the taste of them on my tongue. My manuscript had been erased, but the story still burned inside me, a quiet fire that refused to die. I straightened slowly, pulling in a breath that steadied the tremor in my hands. The office around me was a blur of motion, editors and interns moving through the bright light of morning, their conversations a quiet hum that barely touched the edges of my focus. My eyes found Ji-won through the glass wall, his expression thoughtful as he spoke with a senior editor, his hands moving with precise, deliberate gestures. "He wants something real," I thought, the whisper of it curling in my mind like a promise. "He doesn't care who brings it to him, as long as it burns bright enough to blind him." My lips curved in a faint smile, the weight of it unfamiliar but steady. I could give him that. I would. I turned away from the glass and stepped into the hallway, my feet silent against the carpet. The corridor stretched out before me, the light spilling in from the tall windows warm on my skin. Each step felt like a small rebellion, a quiet defiance that echoed in the hollow of my chest. As I walked, I let my thoughts settle around me like armor. The draft was gone, but the story lived in me still. Sojin's smile was a mask, and Ji-won's hunger was a challenge. I would find a way to rise, even if my voice was only a whisper at first. At the end of the hallway, the elevator doors opened with a soft chime, the polished metal reflecting my pale face, my eyes bright with something I didn't yet dare to name. I stepped inside, the doors closing with a quiet sigh behind me. And in that moment of hushed silver and soft light, I let the words form in the silence. This is my story, my voice, and I will not let it be erased. The elevator doors closed behind me, their soft sigh a final punctuation to the silent vow echoing in my chest. I stepped out into the evening air, the sky above a bruised canvas of thunderclouds, rain already gathering on the horizon like an unspoken threat. The city shimmered with an eerie luminescence as neon lights reflected off wet pavement, each drop of rain catching the glow like 1,000 scattered stars. I walked with my head bowed, my coat pulled tight around me, the cold seeped through the thin fabric, every drop of rain that found my skin a cold needle, a quiet punishment for the words I had failed to say. My breath rose in pale clouds that vanished almost as soon as they formed, fleeting and insubstantial like the hope I had nursed for so long. The memory of the empty folder, of Sojin's soft laughter, clung to me with every step. My mind replayed the moment on an endless loop. The flick of her gaze, the curve of her lips, the careful precision of her false sympathy. My heart thudded against my ribs, each beat a question I could not answer. How many more times would I let her steal my words before I found the courage to stop her? The rain began as a gentle patter against the brim of my umbrella, a soft whisper in the darkness. It grew into a relentless downpour, sheets of water that blurred the world into a watercolor of light and shadow. My shoes slipped on the slick pavement, the sound of my steps lost in the roar of the storm. Streetlights flickered in the downpour, the glow of them soft and golden, almost tender against the night. I paused at the corner, the traffic light blinking red in the misty air. Cars hissed past, tires throwing up arcs of water that glittered in the light before vanishing into the darkness. I stood there, each breath shallow and trembling, the weight of the day pressing down on me with silent insistence. A car sped past, its headlights twin blades of light cutting through the rain. My reflection stared back at me in the glass of a rain-slicked window. A pale face, eyes shadowed, lips parted in a silent plea I could not voice. The world around me felt fragile, like a pane of glass that might shatter at the lightest touch. If only I'd been braver, I thought, the words a soft ache in the hollow of my chest. If only I'd held my ground, refused to be silent. My hand curled around the strap of my bag, fingers aching with the force of the grip. A screech of tire sliced through the murmur of rain. I turned, the motion slow, dreamlike, the world narrowed to the blinding glare of headlights, the roar of an engine, too close, too fast. My breath caught, frozen in my throat as the light swallowed me whole. In that endless moment, my heart whispered a single truth. I will not be erased. The impact never came. I woke with a gasp, my fingers clutching at the sheets tangled around my legs, my heart hammered in my chest, each beat an echo of the headlights that had burned across my vision. My skin was slick with sweat, the thin cotton of my shirt clinging to my shoulders. The room was dark, the only light the pale glow of the moon slipping through the slats of the blinds. I pressed a hand to my chest, feeling the wild rush of my pulse beneath my palm. My breath shuddered in the silence, a ragged exhale that tasted of relief and disbelief. The calendar on the wall caught my eye, the numbers stark and silent. My vision blurred as I read the date once, twice, my mind fighting to believe the truth written there in neat, impersonal print. 5 years ago, I thought, the words falling into the quiet like a stone dropped into deep water. My throat closed around a sob I refused to let free. I was here again, back in the days before everything had been taken from me, before my voice had been stolen and buried beneath someone else's ambition. I pushed the blankets aside and stood, my legs unsteady as I crossed to the window. The night air was cool against my skin, the moonlight soft and clean as it washed across my face. I pressed my forehead to the glass, the chill grounding me in the present, the now that felt like a gift I had never dared to ask for. The memory of Sojin's smirk rose in my mind, sharp as the scent of rain. The quiet disdain in Jiwon's eyes, the way he had never seen me except as another tool to be used or discarded. Each memory clear and bright, as if the years had never dulled their edges. My hands curled into fists at my sides. the faint tremor in my fingers steadying as the air filled my lungs. Not this time, I thought, the vow soft but unyielding. Never again. The words tasted of steel and fire, the promise of a voice I would no longer silence for anyone. I dressed in the quiet, each movement deliberate and slow, the soft rustle of fabric, the gentle click of the clasp on my watch. It felt like a ritual, a reclamation of every moment I had let slip through my fingers. My reflection in the mirror was pale, but my eyes were clear, the shadows beneath them a testament to every night I had spent crafting the words that no one else could steal. I stepped out into the hallway, the hush of the sleeping house a comforting weight around me. My fingers brushed against the doorframe, the wood cool and smooth beneath my touch. Each step down the narrow staircase was measured. The soft creak of the boards a familiar lullaby that steadied the racing of my heart. In the kitchen, the faint glow of the stove light cast long shadows across the worn linoleum. I filled the kettle, the quiet splash of water a gentle counterpoint to the rush of thoughts in my mind. As the water began to boil, I rested my palms against the cool surface of the counter, my head bowed. I have been given this chance, I thought, the words a quiet litany. I will not waste it. I will not be small or silent or afraid. The whistle of the kettle rose, shrill and insistent, and I poured the water into a cup with steady hands. The steam rose in delicate tendrils, the faint scent of green tea grounding me in the moment. I wrapped my fingers around the cup, the warmth seeping into my skin, anchoring me to the promise I had made. I stepped outside, the night air crisp and clean, the faint patter of rain on the leaves a soft murmur that echoed the quiet resolve in my chest. The sky was clear now, the stars sharp and bright above me. Each breath tasted of possibility, of the stories that lived in the spaces between heartbeats. This is my chance, I thought, my lips curving in a faint smile that was more real than any I had worn in years. This time, I will not let them take it from me. The moonlight bathed the world in silver, and in that quiet glow, I felt something shift inside me. A small, quiet light that refused to be dimmed. The moonlight had long faded when I returned to the office the next morning, the sky still heavy with the remnants of night. My reflection in the glass doors was calm, composed, but inside, my thoughts churned like a storm waiting to break. As I stepped into the softly lit hallway, the hush of the early hour wrapped around me, each step an echo of the promise I'd made to myself. I walked slowly, my eyes drifting to the posters on the wall. The bright covers of the bestsellers the company had claimed as their own, each one a testament to someone's voice, voices that had been allowed to live. My breath caught in my throat, and I pressed my hand to the door of my small office, feeling the cool metal steady me. This was my time. My second chance. I wouldn't waste it. Through the glass walls, I could see Seojin already at her desk, her head bent over her notes. Her hair was smooth and glossy, each strand a calculated perfection that never seemed to waver. She looked up as I walked past, her smile a slow, practiced thing. There was a softness to it that always felt like velvet over a blade. "Ahan," she said, her voice light as silk. "Working late again? Or starting early?" Her laughter was gentle, almost affectionate. Almost. I paused, turning to face her fully. "A bit of both," I said, my tone even. My heart was a quiet beat in my chest, but my gaze was steady. "There's always more to do." Her lips curved a little wider, a flash of teeth that never reached her eyes. "That's what I like about you," she said softly. "So thorough. So dedicated." Her gaze lingered a moment, then slid away as she turned back to her work. I watched her for a breath, every flick of her pen, every tilt of her head, the small motions she used to charm, to distract. Each gesture was deliberate, a performance she played so well. She thinks she's untouchable, I thought, my fingers brushing the edge of my desk. She thinks no one sees beyond the mask. I sank into my chair, the leather creaking softly beneath me. My computer hummed to life, the glow of the screen painting my face in pale light. My hand moved with quiet purpose as I pulled a battered notebook from my bag, its edges worn soft from nights spent pressed close to my heart. I opened it slowly, the pages a silent witness to the words that lived in me still. Each backup was a prayer of sorts, a talisman against the silence I'd lived with for so long. A battered notebook in my bag, pages inked with hurried scrawls in the quiet hours of dawn. A hidden USB taped beneath my desk, its small bright glint a secret no one else could find. A handwritten copy tucked deep in the corner of my closet, the words traced with care in the half-light of midnight. I pressed my hand to the cover of the notebook, feeling the slight tremor in my fingers ease. She can't touch this, I thought, a quiet satisfaction threading through my resolve. Not this time. The hours slipped past in a blur of quiet industry. I watched Sojin from across the room, the way her fingers drummed against the table when she thought no one was watching. The slight narrowing of her eyes when she read through a file. The way her lips pressed together in a thin line when something displeased her. She played the role of the golden child so well, her smile so bright they almost blinded. Yet beneath the bright surface, I saw the flicker of calculation, the edge of her ambition as sharp as a knife. She thinks no one sees the truth, I mused, my pen tapping against the page in rhythm with my thoughts. She doesn't understand that silence isn't weakness. It's a choice. A shield. Late that night, I slipped away from the office, my steps soft against the empty hallway. The city was a different world after dark, the neon glow of signs casting long shadows that stretched across the wet pavement. I ducked into an internet cafe, the scent of stale coffee and warm electronics wrapping around me like a comfort I hadn't known I'd missed. The glow of the screen lit my face as I typed, each keystroke a small, quiet rebellion. My reflection in the glass was clear and unflinching, my hair loose around my shoulders, eyes bright in the half-light. This is my voice, I thought, my fingers steady on the keyboard. And it's stronger than any silence she can force on me. A flicker of humor danced at the edge of my thoughts, a small, unexpected laugh that curled in my chest. Seojin's confidence isn't strength, I thought. The irony of it sweet as honey. It's an illusion, a house of cards built on the belief that no one's watching. I wrote until the sky began to pale at the edges, the city slowly waking around me. My shoulders ached, my fingers cramped, but I felt lighter than I had in years. Each word was a promise, a quiet testament to everything I refused to lose. Back at the office, I found Do-yoon hunched over a stack of manuscripts, his dark hair falling into his eyes as he read with quiet focus. He looked up as I approached, his expression shifting from surprise to a warm, shy smile. "Taeyeon," he said softly, his voice a low, hesitant murmur. "You're here early." His eyes flickered to the notebook in my hands, curiosity bright in the depths. "I have something," I said, holding it out to him. "A small piece. Would you read it?" My words were careful, my tone light, though inside my pulse beat in quiet, measured determination. He took the pages with both hands, treating them with the reverence I hadn't known I'd wanted. "Of course," he said, his smile gentle, the weight of it a balm against the sharp edges of my fear. I watched him as he read, the crease of his brow as he focused, the slight parting of his lips as he turned the page. My breath held in my chest, waiting for the smallest sign, the slightest shift. When he looked up, his eyes were warm and steady. "This is real," he said softly. "It feels like it was written in the dark, but it shines. You should share this." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding, a soft laugh that tasted of relief. "Maybe someday," I said, the faint curve of my lips a secret shared only with the quiet air between us. Someday, I thought as I turned away, the warmth of Do-hyun's trust a steady glow in my chest, but not yet. The office lights flickered softly as I settled back at my desk, the steady hum of computers and the low murmur of conversation, a quiet backdrop to the new fire in my veins. Sojin's laughter drifted across the room, bright and false, and I let it wash over me like water off stone. She doesn't see me now, I thought, my hands resting steady on the keys. But she will. The dawn light through my office blinds felt softer than it had in years, as if the world itself had shifted in my favor. I sat at my desk, the decoy draft resting on top of the keyboard, its crisp white pages gleaming with false promise. Just beneath, hidden from plain sight, lay the real manuscript. Each page pulsing with parts of me that no other version could capture. My chest tightened in that quiet moment, every heartbeat echoing the duality of what I had created. The rest of the manuscript world might see only the decoy, the polished but hollow shell of words. I looked at the stack, letting the hollow verses speak their silent lie. They'll take it. I know they will. I blinked, my breath steadying, and that's exactly how it should be. My fingers brushed the top sheet, pressing lightly as if caressing a sleeping child's brow. Seojin arrived soon after, her presence filling the room with an air of effortless confidence. She wore navy slacks and a silk blouse that billowed softly around her shoulders as she walked. Each step she took echoed against the floor as though measured. She paused at my desk, lips curving in a gentle smile. Her eyes grazed the decoy manuscript, lingering too long for coincidence. I looked up at her, my gaze calm, untroubled. They think I'm vulnerable. They believe this version is my best. Let them. She cleared her throat softly. Morning, she murmured, her tone smooth. Her fingertips brushed a strand of hair from her lips. I recognized the movement, an unconscious gesture she used when poised to strike. Morning, I replied, voice steady, warm enough to welcome, cold enough to warn. I leaned back slightly in my chair, folding my hands across my lap so she could focus only on the decoy draft. Seojin's lips curled upward. I found this in your inbox earlier, she said lightly, fingering the pages as if they were a tempting secret. Looks promising. Did you write this while you were reviewing Mr. Kim's fantasy series? I met her gaze, tone unflinching. Yes. The single word carried no defense, no explanation. Just the truth dressed in simplicity. Her eyes narrowed, then softened into something that seemed like pity. Poor Ha-hun. She tucked her hair behind one ear, the gesture crisp, even routined. You really should be more careful. An editor's draft is never safe around here. Her words hummed with irony. She believed she held all the power. My draft, my words, my ambition. She didn't see the hidden pages beneath her fingertips. A quiet smile curved my lips. Let her think she's won. Let her dance in the ruins of something that never mattered. My fingers poised over the real manuscript beneath the keyboard. Untouched, unread, untouchable. For now. Seojin lifted the top sheet, settling in to scan the contents. Her brows rose at the first lines. Familiar, but hollow. Wide-eyed, she murmured, This is actually good, better than your usual. Her lips tightened into an appreciative nod. I shifted, folding my hands onto my desk. Pour the venom, Seojin. Let the belief that she's winning take hold. I watched her carefully, every flick of her eyelash, the subtle flash of victory in her gaze. Without hesitation, she stood. I'll pass this to Mr. Lee tomorrow, she said, slipping the draft into her sleek folder. She winked over her shoulder, showing too much confidence. I know exactly how to shine this one up. The words dripped with condescension. My breath settled. Perfect. She believed the bait was real. She wouldn't see what was truly coming next. And I would be ready. As she turned to leave, I let the smile linger. Thank you, I said softly, for uncovering that. Who knew I wrote so well when unedited? The irony slipped through effortlessly, like smoke curling from a candle. Her back stiffened for a heartbeat. Then she exhaled quietly in amusement. Always happy to help, Hyun. And with that, she exited, heels clicking gently on polished marble. I let the office fall silent again, the hum of computers my only companion. My heart pounded behind my ribs, slow and steady like an echo in a cave. I closed my eyes briefly, letting the mask slip for a moment. You did it. Later, after hours, I sank into the leather seat of an internet cafe chair, the neon lights outside flickering in the reflection of my screen. My fingers flew across the keys, uploading the real manuscript under my pen name. Each paragraph bled my real heart, the soul of the story, a feathered flame within the ether of the web. I watched as the upload bar crept forward, each percentage a silent pulse of triumph. The glow of my face on screen felt intimate and powerful, a second skin made of light. This is beyond bait. This is quiet revolution. I exhaled softly, tapping the final key. The submit confirmation blinked on, bright and decisive. Back in the office the next day, Seojin hadn't learned her lesson yet. She arrived exultant, manuscript in hand, grinning like a victor at the conference table. Mr. Lee loved it, she proclaimed. He wants to discuss it with Jiwon this afternoon. Her words floated across the room, landing heavy on my chest. I heard snippets of her conversation, praise, enthusiasm, but the glow of her success felt brittle, fragile. I settled at my desk, hands folded, calm as a pond. My heart was fierce with something neither she nor anyone else could see. Confidence, yes, but leavened with a secret fire stirring beneath my ribs. Midday arrived with the subtle hush of final preparations. She arranged the sheets in 3 neat stacks, fingers brushing the paper's edge. Fragile. Empty. Perfect. The title at the top looked bright. Too bright, to be honest. Her eyes flicked my way, meeting mine with that practiced warmth. She didn't know I had aligned something deeper than appearance and ink. We shared a flicker of tension, heads bent in opposite directions, worlds poised to collide. That afternoon, they'd ask for words. They'd command reveal. The air thickened with quiet anticipation, every heartbeat building toward the reveal I carried quietly along. I forced the faintest nod, lips curved in a knowing half-smile. Let them take the bait. Let them believe the winner is clear. Because when this is over, the real story will be the only one they remember. The overhead lights hummed softly, the day humming beneath fragrant cartridges of printer ink and the oppressive tyranny of ambition. My reflection glimmered in the dark screen beside me. A small icon of resistance illuminated from within. It was time. The murmurs began long before I stepped into the room. A low current of voices that soared into whispers as I reached the threshold. The morning sun cast long shadows through the glass walls, illuminating the polished table where editors sat in neat rows like tribunal members. Jiwon stood at the head of the table, his suit crisp and authority commanding. His expression held a flicker of something new, an intensity that hadn't been there before. I pulled the door open with quiet determination and stepped inside. Every eye turned toward me, a wave of anticipation radiating through the air. The hum of gossip came to life. Is it her? She knows who the author is. Buzzing like electricity, tension perched on every breath, waiting. I closed the door gently, my shoulders squared, my posture steady. I am not invisible anymore. My reflection in the glass was pale, but firm, no longer masking fear or doubt. I moved to the empty chair beside Jiwon and sat with measured grace, placing the polished pen name submission atop the decoy folder. It was a quiet act of reclamation. Jiwon's gaze swept over the room before he lifted his hand, signaling silence. Today, he began, voice steady, I want to discuss something extraordinary. We've discovered a manuscript online that's capturing attention, drawing emotion from readers in a way few works do. Who is the author? That remains the mystery. Whoever wrote it, they have real talent. Heads nodded. The buzz died down, replaced by a pregnant pause. I waited for the shift, for the spark of realization someone might share. Then I stood slowly, feeling the eyes drift to me, latch on to me. The hush deepened. My pulse thrummed beneath my ribs, but my voice remained calm, soft but resonant in the hush. You were looking for the author, I murmured, every eye flicking between me and Jiwon. Here I am. A collective gasp filled the air. The boardroom lights reflected off stunned faces, some bright with surprise, some pale with confusion. My heart beat with fierce clarity. This is my moment. I pressed forward with deliberate calm, laying the online submission before everyone. I slid the folder across the table, the soft skirt of movement echoing in the stillness. Jiwon leaned forward, brow furrowing, curiosity sharpening into interest. I raised a hand, palm flat against the table, voice steady. I am the author behind that manuscript. A low hum of disbelief followed. Her tremor of color draining from her cheeks. She opened her mouth, but her words caught on a rising tide of shock. Her hands clenched the folder like lifelines that couldn't hold. I clicked the remote in my palm, and the projection on the wall shifted to the security camera footage. I watched her staring back, unaware of the lens capturing every move, her eyes narrowing, the curve of her lips as she hovered over my draft. The room fell silent, the faint whir of the projector the only sound that dared breathe. I backed up my final draft here, I said, lifting a flash drive and scanning the room. Time-stamped, complete and untouched. I slid the device forward. What you deleted was not the truth. I still had the words, and now we have the evidence. Jiwon's gaze sharpened. Show us, he commanded, his voice cold with duty. I pressed play. The image showed Sojin accessing my folder after hours, her hand moving over the files before clicking delete. The screen froze on her face, the expression caught in the half-light. Gasps erupted around the table. I stepped aside, letting the footage land like a verdict. Seojin's lips quivered. She pressed them tight, pale, stuttering. You can't. My gaze met hers, calm and resolute. I don't need to destroy you, Sojin, I said softly, voice cold as steel. You destroyed yourself. Whispers rippled through the room. Jiwon rose, turning to address the group. Such actions are unacceptable. Ha-un, thank you for believing in your own work and having the courage to reveal the truth. His eyes met mine, a new respect brewing in their depths. I nodded once, letting his words settle. I turned back to Sojin, standing as the weight of everything pressed down on her shoulders. Her silk blouse seemed heavy now, the fabric a soft contrast to the sharp blow of the evidence arrayed before her. Her carefully applied lipstick looked fragile, as though any tremor might crack it. She swallowed, voice brittle. I didn't realize. A faint smile curved my lips. No cruelty, only quiet resolution. You didn't look for the truth either, only for your own reflection. My words were soft but unrelenting. You assumed your masks would hold forever, but they couldn't erase me. She closed her eyes as if to escape the weight of the moment. Her shoulders shook ever so slightly. I felt no triumph, only a hush of sorrow for what she had become. Jiwon stepped forward, using his authority to close the chapter. Seojin, please come with me. His voice was even. She nodded, expression blank, and followed him out of the room, each footstep heavy. The door slid shut, leaving an echo of departure in its wake. I felt the silence shift from expectation to relief, almost warmth. I closed my eyes momentarily, letting it wash over me. It's over. Jiwon turned back to me, eyes clear. Would you like to say something? I stood, straightening my shoulders, chest full of quiet pride. My gaze swept the room. My colleagues, once indifferent, now gazed with curiosity. My breath deepened. My words were mine to write, not mine to lose, I said, tone soft but unwavering. I kept them, and it's time they were heard. Then, I sat back down. A wave of tension released, replaced by a calm sense of rightness. Later, I walked out of the room and into the hallway, shoes silent on the polished floor. Do-hyun waited by the glass, eyes bright with something unspoken. He gave me a small, steady nod, an unspoken thank you that nestled in my chest. I looked ahead to the elevator doors, feeling something shift inside me. An echo of something I had believed lost forever. I am here. My reflection in the metal door was steady, strong, whole. As the doors closed, I captured this moment in memory. A silent triumph carried in every fiber of my being. The manuscript would be published. Seojin would leave. And for the first time, my name, my words, would be seen. The office lights felt warmer as I stepped out of that final meeting, the air filled with a quiet hum of conversations that no longer pressed down on my shoulders. My footsteps echoed softly in the empty hallway, each step a deliberate, measured beat. I carried no folders, no burdens, only the faint weight of possibility that sat lightly in my chest. My reflection in the glass wall was calm, steady, no longer shadowed by hesitation or doubt. Jiwon stood near the exit, his posture relaxed but watchful, his dark eyes steady as they met mine. The sun had begun its slow descent beyond the city skyline, the last light of day casting a soft, honeyed glow across his face. He gave a small nod, almost imperceptible, as if to acknowledge the gravity of what had just passed. You've always been the quiet one, Hoon, he said, his voice low, a thread of something close to respect woven through each word. I was blind to what you held inside you. That won't happen again. He paused, the faintest smile ghosting his lips. I'd like you to take Sojin's place. Senior editor. You've earned that. I watched him carefully, the offer hanging in the air like a shimmering thread of promise. His face was open, free of the calculating lines that once marked it. A man who had glimpsed something truer than the cold calculus of profit. A small breath left my lips, gentle as the hush that filled the space between us. Thank you, I said, my voice soft but unwavering. I'm grateful. I let the pause settle, feeling the weight of the title he offered me. Then I shook my head, my smile quiet, resolute. I don't want titles anymore, I said, the words steady, final. I want to write stories that matter. He regarded me with a long, thoughtful silence, his lips parting as if to argue, then pressing into a line of understanding. I suppose that's something I could never give you, he said finally, his voice softer than I'd ever heard it. Stories belong to those who live them. I inclined my head in a final nod of respect, then turned to leave. My hand brushed against the smooth wood of the door, feeling the grain beneath my fingertips, a tactile reminder of the world beyond these walls. As I stepped into the fading light of dusk, I felt something ease in my chest, as if a breath I had been holding for years had finally been released. Outside, the city glowed with the quiet flicker of neon signs, their colors bleeding into the night like watercolor dreams. The rain had left the streets slick and shining, the reflections of the traffic lights shimmering in puddles that seemed to ripple with possibility. I walked slowly, my steps measured, letting the chill of the air fill my lungs with every inhale. My thoughts drifted to Seojin, the memory of her final glance as she left the building for the last time, a flicker of defiance in her eyes that had already begun to fade. I knew she would see my name in the news feeds, the manuscript that carried my true voice finally given life in the world she had tried so hard to shape in her own image. The echoes of that name would reach her wherever she fled, a quiet testament to everything she could not bury. I turned a corner and found myself standing before a small cafe, the warm glow of its windows spilling golden light onto the wet sidewalk. I stepped inside, the scent of roasted coffee and sweet pastries wrapping around me like a gentle embrace. The soft murmur of conversation filled the air, a comforting background to the rhythmic hiss of the espresso machine. I chose a seat by the window, the glass fogged slightly from the warmth inside. The city lights beyond were bright, tiny stars strung across the dark velvet of the night. My breath formed small clouds on the window pane, each one vanishing almost as quickly as it came, ephemeral and delicate. I reached into my bag and drew out my battered notebook, the edges worn soft by countless nights of whispered promises to myself. My fingers traced the cover slowly, each line and crease familiar as the sound of my own name. I opened it, the blank page waiting. A quiet invitation. My pen moved in slow, deliberate strokes, the ink bleeding into the paper like a secret finding its voice. Each word a reclamation of the silence that had been forced upon me, a gentle defiance that echoed in every line. I let the stories pour out, unburdened by expectation or fear, the quiet pulse of my own truth steady beneath my ribs. The greatest revenge is never becoming what they tried to make me, I thought, my breath soft against the page. My stories are my voice, and this time, no one will erase me. The words were a promise and a benediction, each line a testament to the quiet power that lived within me. Outside, the city moved in its restless rhythm, unaware of the small, fierce light that had kindled in the shadows. I watched the people passing by beyond the glass, the flicker of their lives, the brief intersections of their stories. I wondered how many of them carried words inside them that had never been spoken, how many dreams pressed down beneath the weight of someone else's ambition. The thought was a soft ache, a quiet song that hummed in the marrow of my bones. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the hush of the cafe wrap around me like a lullaby. My breath was steady, the weight in my chest replaced by a gentle warmth that spread through every part of me. I knew then, with a certainty as clear as the light beyond the glass, that this was my place, my voice, my life, my story. The finality of that realization settled over me like the hush of falling snow, each flake a small, perfect silence that softened the world around me. I opened my eyes to the night, the city shimmering in the rain-slicked glow, and I smiled. A soft, quiet smile that held everything I had fought to reclaim. The light beyond the glass was bright, unwavering, and for the first time in years I let it in. In the end, Ha-Yun's journey isn't just about reclaiming her words, it's a testament to the quiet strength inside all of us. Remember, the greatest revenge is never becoming what they tried to make you. Let this story remind you to guard your voice fiercely and speak your truth, even when the world tries to bury it. We'd love to hear from you. What does this story mean to you? Share your thoughts in the comments below and let your voice join the chorus of those who will never be erased.